Hello and welcome to the HikeStrong podcast. Before we get started, a quick side note. Me and a small team of technically inclined hikers are working on the HikeStrong app. And a lot of what you hear across these HikeStrong podcasts is shaping how we're building it. It's not ready yet, but if you want updates, I want to be among the first to use it, hop on over to HikeStrongApp.com. So this is a 3-part series. It's a unique format featuring Dave, an aspiring Swiss Alps hiker and a total newcomer to this kind of challenge. Me, his hiking strength and conditioning coach, and Alex, the Swiss Alps expert who designs world-class hut-to-hut experiences. So I'm pulling off this collaboration with Dave in Delaware and Alex in Zurich. So we're spanning continents to bring this conversation to life. Together, this series tells a complete story of preparation, experience, and expertise. So part 1 is my conversation with Dave. Part 2 is Dave with Alex. And part 3 brings Alex and me together. So Dave, we're going to crush this thing. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So the first 2 episodes in this series will bring together 2 people whose stories meet at a powerful crossroads between preparation and possibility. On one side is Dave, a retired dentist, lifelong volunteer, firefighter, and someone who's rebuilt his strength, confidence, and identity through training. On the other is Alex, founder of WanderWeGo.com, a consultancy that helps hikers design Swiss hiking adventures with the kind of precision, safety, culture, and insider detail you can only get from someone who truly knows the Alps. So, 4 years ago, Dave lost his wife to cancer. It was a turning point that pushed him into an entirely new chapter. His daughter was studying in Munich, and visiting her opened the door to travel and eventually to hiking. In Switzerland, he was struck by the sight of people of all ages moving through mountains effortlessly. So meanwhile, a short but steep 2.5-mile hike flared up his old hip arthritis, and he knew he wanted to be strong, capable, and active for life, not someone who lost mobility with age. So when Alex introduced him to the idea of a hut-to-hut trek, one she would design and oversee, Dave felt both excited and intimidated. So it was the perfect goal, but he'd never hiked 2 or 3 days in a row, didn't know how his body would respond, and wanted to show up not just ready, but beyond ready. So that's when he reached out to me for coaching. So what followed was months of structured, thoughtful, and progressive training designed around the exact elevation profiles that Alex mapped out for him. And Dave showed up like the firefighter he is, accountable, all in, willing to dig deep, willing to embrace discomfort, and determined to find out how far he could go. He brought a strong foundation, kettlebell work, sled pulls, farmer carries, and general conditioning, but he needed the kind of hiking-specific strength and durability that real mountain days demand. We built the program step by step, from general strength to targeted hiking strength, from 5-mile days to double-digit miles, from no pack to 35 pounds for 8 miles and 3,000 feet of elevation gain just before he departed for his Swiss Alps adventure. He navigated setbacks along the way, of course, as in life, but he kept going every time. He mastered the base phase and attacked his peak phase. He dialed in fueling, hydration, and pacing. He fine-tuned pack loading and pull strategies. And while he was doing all this, Alex was shaping the experience he was preparing for. The route, the huts, the terrain, the flow of each day, the kind of thoughtful planning that turns a challenging trip into something safe, achievable, and unforgettable. Their collaboration became the template. A well-designed itinerary paired with focused preparation creates confidence that you can feel. Now, somewhere in the process, Dave stopped just preparing for a hike. He began rebuilding his identity. Post-retirement, post-loss, post-surgery, and redefining what was possible at 62 with a triple bypass in his history. Toward the end of our coaching, he shared something that stayed with me. And he said, quote, "This is one of the best investments I've made in myself. I'll help anyone who needs it." And that sets the stage for today's part 1, the beginning of this 3-part series. So Dave, my friend, you became my friend. Your whole training journey really sets the tone for this episode. So I'm going to start with you. Every week when we sat down to look at your workouts, we always ended up talking about more than just sets and reps. You'd start sharing thoughts about staying capable as we get older, or how training was affecting the way you see everyday life. And honestly, those conversations became one of my favorite parts of the process. For you, getting ready for the Swiss Alps wasn't just about the trip. It was about feeling strong again, feeling independent again. And you've said a few times that walking and hiking, things that should come naturally, sometimes need to be relearned because of how sedentary life makes us. And you talked about how losing the ability to move real distances can take away from your freedom. Training gave that back to you. So for the first segment, I want us to talk through all of that, what the preparation felt like, what surprised you, and what it really takes to get ready for something that demands a little more from you than everyday life does. So I'm going to tee up a few things that you've talked about before, and you can just riff on them one at a time. But before I do that, is there anything that you want to say? Because I've been talking for a long time.
Yeah, but I want to have this in a format that anyone could understand. So I don't want to just start with what I believe is to be the most important thing if that's not going to help someone. You mentioned everything that I would have said. Sometimes I really forgot how far I've come. This was really life-changing. And as you said, I want everyone to have the same experience. I want people, whatever age, to experience the freedom I found and the renewed self-confidence, the power in myself. And you want to talk about just the fact that barriers were broken every hike, every time I went out, and many times I didn't want to go. And even something as small as just putting my clothes on, talking myself into it, negotiating with myself about the cold, the rain, that was another breakthrough. It translated into things that I still keep with me today. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not faced with some challenge, minor or major. And I don't say, this is nothing because of what I've been through. I was telling you the other day about me moving, having to muscle out 18-hour days to pack up a house I had for 37 years. I felt the strength, even though I was tired, even though I was worn out, and probably had every excuse not to continue. I relied on what you gave me for the last, we started, dropping January 1 of 2025. So I would say we went 6 months, and that 6 months of building is a life skill. It's not something that I would say is just for the week of hiking. It was foundational. And as you said earlier, the fact that we talked every week gave me support, gave me the encouragement. It was like you were in my head. And when I was recording in the spreadsheet, my daily totals, I couldn't wait to share that with you because I wanted you to know I'm all in because of this relationship that we built. I didn't want to let you down. I didn't want to let myself down. So if I got to the end of the week and I didn't have my miles in, I was not going to give in. I was going to say, I know you're going to look at this Sunday night and I'm going to get an email. And when I do, I couldn't wait to hear, good job. Thank you. Great job. Keep going. You killed it. You knocked it out. All that stuff matters. I'm not sure it's my age or I'm not sure it's my background, but I think that matters that you have this accountability that I could not get away from. I'm not sure if this is the way that you'd like to start listening to my story, but it's what comes to mind right now.
Yeah, I think this is perfect. This is how our conversations go. We get technical. We talk about your training plan, what to expect for the week, talk about your milestone challenges, and then you'd go into sage mode, man.
Yep.
And you just start riffing. And I just sit back and just listen, to the wise person that you are. And that's why I'm excited we're talking. All of my podcasts, as of recent, are very practical, and that's totally fine. That's necessary and critical. So we talk about training. I just wanted to just kind of get back on with you, start riffing here.
Yeah.
And just seeing what comes to mind.
I have just from the introduction narrative that you did, I have many things that just you opened up the memory bank of the last 10 months, 11 months. And I forgot I fell. I forgot I actually tore a rotator cuff in the fall in the ice. And my knee hurt the first time I went out. That never went away. And all these things of learning, growing, persevering through nagging things. Nothing was major, just all things that we had to get over. And what you said to me the other day, spoke with, I think technique does matter, but in my world, it's philosophy first. Technique will follow because I'm sure there's many ways to get to the same point. It's just a matter of what is the overarching philosophy of this hike? How do you train for 24 miles and 9,000 feet of elevation? It's the old story of how do you eat the elephant, one bite at a time. That's seemingly how you did it. And the breakdown that you gave me was achievable every time I logged in and entered my daily numbers, if you would. I just felt like I was growing, like right in front of me. And then I would look back on it sometimes at the end of the week and say, you asked for 9 miles. I did 12. I did 15. And it wasn't hard. It just, your training philosophy just is so scalable that I don't know why anyone couldn't do your program, whatever their background is.
And I think you bring up something important beyond just my program. I think just the journey, right? The journey, booking a trip, whether you feel confident or not. In fact, why not book something you're not confident with and then go through a training journey, whatever journey that is. And in that process, I think people will discover, of course, their own things and then probably be able to relate back to this conversation and remember some of the things you said and be like, these things are happening. These evolutions are materializing. And as we continue our conversation, we'll reveal some more of those things. So,
could I interrupt you one second?
Of course you can.
At one point in my training, I just felt worn out and I decided to hike without a pack, without the extra weight. And I flew through this hike and it was beyond what I had. And you said, well, now you understand what strength and reserve is. I couldn't imagine that I had this, money in the bank kind of thing. And I think that as you're talking about the journey and the base building and things, I can't help but think, Marcus, that all these events that build up, when you go slightly beyond your self-imposed limits, if you would, you have that strength of reserve. And it's the carryover is what I can't help but share is that this isn't a week of Dave Zuckerman in the Swiss Alps. This is a life journey that now has found a pathway to accomplishment outside of this week. And I might have commented that, I didn't feel like this was a finish line. I felt like this was a new starting line. And you gave me the confidence and the technique and philosophy that I can apply this to many things I look forward to doing.
Yeah, makes sense, Dave. I found this interesting. I agree with this, but I don't talk about with this my clients. Okay. And it's implied, but I still don't talk about it. Many of them probably don't think about it. So I'm going to have you riff on this. Walking/hiking is the most basic function of a human being. But because we've advanced so far in creature comforts and become so sedentary, it's got to be relearned. So you can riff on that however you want.
Yeah, I think that conversation came out of the overcomplicated life that we've chosen, and we're inundated with information. So too much information complicates what, as you reminded me, that we've said that we don't need anything but the basics. And if you can more or less isolate all the extra stuff to say it does matter, but not as much as just doing the hike, just walking, getting enough miles in. Maybe it's just that we're saturated with so much the intentions I think are great, but how did we get here? And why are we so complicated when our ancestors just walked? We're so much healthier. You can look back, even back to the 1940s. You look at American soldiers who were 140 pounds and the leanness. And because they exercised, they didn't have the creature comfort. They didn't have two cars and their kids didn't ride, electric scooters and all these things. So in a way, Marcus, I feel maybe we've gone too far. Maybe we've got to get back to basics. What is the original gym? It was outside. It was carrying the load. It was getting strength and reserve so that you were there and you were fit on a day-to-day basis. This wasn't something that you went 3 times a week to do. In my opinion, it was something that was just part of life. But as you're talking about, and it reminds me, how did we get so sedentary? How did we lose just this natural ability? And if there is such a thing, what is our way out? How do we get back to what we were so many generations ago?
Yeah. I mean, this sounds maybe so self-indulgent because this is what I do for a living. But maybe the way you start, Dave, is you just book a hike, book a challenging hike and get in shape for it. Simple as that.
Yep.
Maybe that's one way, of course, of many, right?
Yeah. In listening to what you just said, Marcus, that's a perfect way because you now have a goal in mind. You have a timeline to do this. And in a way, this may be your accountability is that with this hike in mind, with the need to get so many miles in a week and so much elevation in a week, you now are programmed. And when I was doing your program, I did not look outside. I didn't look for a gym. I didn't look for stair climbers. I said, this is all I need. And because I believed in the program, because I saw results immediately, I knew that anything else was going to be just a distraction, things I don't need to think about right now. And not only is it a distraction, It's unnecessary. It's time consuming. It's probably taken me in the wrong direction because the philosophy of, is it outside of myself? Your hike was completely within my control. I didn't have to worry about the hours at a gym. Was it open? Was I going to get to someplace and the stair mill was occupied and I would not do it? This program that you have is open to everybody. It's free. There's no membership requirement. Load up and go.
Yeah, load up and go. Good tagline, Dave.
Yeah, just give me your excuse for why you can't do Marcus's program and I'll knock you right out of the water. Every excuse. Nope, I'm not taking it.
Yeah. And for all the listeners who aren't fortunate like Dave to have had hiking, you can, of course, go to the gym and you can do other modalities and achieve those goals. But of course, I often hear from my clients who have access to the outdoors is they find that that's preferable. But it is important to reiterate that if you don't have access to the outdoors, whatever trek internationally, domestically that you want to do, you can do it and you can do it in the gym while being outside is probably more desirable. It is what it is. Dave, let's go to the next thought here. So because we've lost our capacity to move longer distances without a load, we've lost our freedom and our independence.
Well, this hits home with me because of my family, and I'm going to call it the evil irony of getting old. When you're young, you have the health and the strength, but you don't have the time or the money. As you age and you don't stay active, you have all the time in the world and probably more money to do things, and yet you're no longer capable of doing this. So as putting off life until everything lines up, you think that's the way to go. It's not going to work. In my family, people don't get old and active. They get old and sedentary. They sit around. I don't want to disparage my family too much, but there's a sense of what they long for is comfort and ease. And when I get, to this age, I'll put my feet up or I don't have to wake up early. And that sounds wonderful until you realize you can't do the things that you were hoping to do at that age. You've limited your mobility. You limited your capability. And in a way, I'm going to say the only thing I can imagine is that they've decided that this is as good as it's going to get. And there's no sense in planning an adventure. There's no sense in planning travel. Everything is going to be too much effort. If only they had kept up, if only they had occupied their time with even short programs, things that they could expand. And I always think about something as simple as a base level of fitness, things that we can do outside of training for the hike. What can I do today for a short time? And how does this get me into a general level of fitness that I can ramp up? Should I want to go to Italy? Should I want to travel? Should I want to get on a cruise and a plane and go see things? So the freedom lost, it's a heartache for me to see my family, I don't want to say waste away, but it seems like they've wasted what they call the good years of their life unnecessarily, if that accomplishes what we're talking about. The irony is, yes, everything now lines up, except you're no longer fit and you don't have the energy to accomplish.
Yeah, makes sense, Dave. All right, let's go to the next one, my friend. So because of the training, you talked about being able to regain your strength and power after taking almost 3 months off. Let's talk about that a bit. What do you say?
I don't know if you were referring to when I came off of the hike and didn't hike every day. Was that?
Let's see. So you said, I feel I'm at mid-season form and could get all the way back with a couple of focused months of training. I think it was back. Yeah. You follow?
This is exactly what I was saying. When I finished my hike in August, I was looking forward to keeping up with the training, but things came up with my move, things came up with life, and I wasn't able to maintain it the first few weeks. So after about a month of inactivity, I decided it's time to put the pack on and go. In a 1 or 2 sessions, it all came back and I hadn't lost it. And I was amazed that this newfound strength was recoverable, that I could get it back, and that I would have been sad, I would have been upset, I would have been, down on myself that I trained so hard and let it all go. But after a short few times, like I said, I felt like I could ramp up right now. In 2 or 3 months, I could get back on that hike. And what you said is how I felt. That's exactly the truth. The program didn't leave me just because I wasn't there for 6 weeks. I was able to pick it right back up and would say to anyone, it's okay not to have the next hike plan. So you don't need to, in my opinion, you don't need to go from hike to hike to stay ready to hike. I think what you've given us is a capability or a capacity to, restart the program at any level soon after.
Dave, oftentimes when I do these podcasts and talk with my clients, I'd like to go back to the chart and reference a few things. I'm not going to do that much today, but I do want to bring this up because I don't think you've put this together, but when we look at your base miles, okay, for the first 12 weeks and then the second 12 weeks, right? In the base phase, you completed 111 miles over 12 weeks. And in the peak phase, you completed 173 miles over 12 weeks. Okay. Now, in terms of elevation gain, in the base phase, over 12 weeks, you completed 37,000 feet. And in the peak phase, you completed 54,500 feet over a 12-week period. And not only that, but we increased your load as well in that peak phase. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I was surprised how easy it was to advance, to take on more. I don't have the right word, but it would be as if it was very organic and not anything I had to strain or try for. And success begets success. So when I was able to do this and go beyond what was my weekly goal, I was like a turbocharger, man. You just flow in the numbers and you float out the power. And I wasn't getting, as I was doing these hikes, my training hikes, Marcus, I was getting stronger at the end. It was amazing. It just didn't feel like I was working as hard. And so when you say, can I look back and say, yeah, I'm surprised, really surprised, because it was not an effort other than get your shoes on, put your pack on and go. That's the only effort. Once I was out the door, I didn't look back. I wasn't going to quit. And every milestone, every mile that I put in just lifted my spirit. I was ready to go. And I do look back on it sometimes and I say, was it one thing? And I really can't point out any one thing that I said, well, that's where the change was. It was so subtle, and just follow the program, stay consistent, persist through what you think are your limitations. Even if you don't want to do something, do it. And you're not going to be drained or out of the energy. You're going to find more energy. It's the contrarian part of life. It's the opposite of what you think. You get stronger by putting out the energy. You don't get, there's no such thing as saving it. I was renewed every hike. I finished, I went home and I just kept going. I would do all day. And I was talking to you last week and I was referencing the 18-hour days I was packing up and moving. And I had to call you to say, thank you, Marcus. I felt like I was training. And yes, you do get tired, but you find the energy and then you have more energy to give out. So it's a continuation of how do you go from 111 to 173 miles? Something inside just clicks in and away you go. There's really, how do I say, it's not a thinking thing. I didn't have to dial this down and say, well, this equals that. No, I was out. Before you know it, you were 3/4 of the way done and saying, I'm growing, I'm getting stronger, I'm finishing with a smile on my face. I didn't even know there was a base and a peak base. By the way, I thought the base was like something, how you would term something like the base of a mountain. So that's what I thought. I didn't know that after 12 weeks, there was another 12 weeks.
All right. Well, in some ways that's good. Like it was just like seamless, right? We just
kept
going.
Yeah. And as I said, every finish line is a new starting line. And if you had given me, say, well, now that you did peak, I'm going to put you through another 6 weeks or something else above peak. Okay, let's go.
You were game. There's no question about it.
I was in.
No question. All right, let's do one last thing. Pretend you're trainer Dave. You're Dave, hike strength and conditioning coach, right? Give one, but no more than 2 tips, like practical tips to get in shape for hiking.
I have so many. It's just trying to think of like what.
I know it's hard to do like 2. I got to cap you.
Yeah. So first, I would say is get an understanding of gear and your shoe. And to me, that was a trial and error. I ended up with more pairs of boots that did not fit. I've given them to my son. So I would say to any listener, your feet are the most important thing. Spend some good money, buy the best boots, even if it takes 2 or 3 tries to find those that work. It's the best investment you can make. Number 2.
It's tough. There are a lot of them, Dave, and you're going on in your head.
Yeah. I would say this. I would say put on the blinders to outside distractions of training information, well-intentioned thoughts from friends, and just stay with Marcus's program. It's people want to help and they want to give you something that they believe is helpful. And when you buy into Marcus, you've gotten everything you need. There is nothing else to do. So yes, there are a million ways to do things. However, follow your program, the KISS philosophy of keep it simple, stupid. This is it. There's very little things. Once you have the program and you have the confidence, as long as you do the program, do whatever else you want outside, doesn't matter. It won't make the biggest difference. Your program is the only thing that will make the difference or that needs to be done. And I would say not do more. I would say do less. Do less of everything and just follow the program. How do I say simplify your life? Stay with one philosophy. Stay with one methodology. Yours work, period.
All right. Dave, that was great. Flattered you framed it that way. And this is what I expected and better, to be honest. I really enjoyed this conversation. We're going to bring in Alex. Okay. But while I do that, okay, you can keep riffing, whatever you want to do, my friend.
Yeah. I want to talk about life with you. And I know you and I are many, many years age difference. And as my friend Watson said, life is messy, talking about loss, talking about things that happen, and there's just no getting around this. However, your program allowed me the freedom to take on a challenge. The challenge allowed me or presented me with an opportunity to accept the unknown and in an environment that I was unfamiliar with, yet because of the base fitness that I had, I was extremely confident. I wouldn't say overconfident, but I was extremely confident that if something wasn't going to go right, I was just going to figure it out. And that is life, man. I just don't know how else you can prevent it. That no one's coming to save us. In the Army Rangers, they say your best support is your own support. It's just a matter of you build this base level of fitness and accompany it with the confidence that anyone's going to achieve after they've taken on any kind of challenge. And this is just money in the bank for you. So guess what? My next challenge wasn't a hike. It was moving my house, getting out of a 4,000 square foot house with 37 years of stuff by myself. I had money in the bank. Thanks to you.
That concludes this episode of the HikeStrong podcast. I'm committed to keeping all of the episodes for free. All I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends. My goal is to build a vast community of hikers with the confidence to crush any local or global trail. I hope you will join me in this endeavor. So until next time, train, hike, repeat, and as always, I'm here to support you every step of the way.